I am Ghoul Shadows, King of the Vampire Court of Brisbane, with an important announcement. The Lost Boys radio show feature investigations or activities performed by trained professionals or under the supervision of trained professionals. Bay FM and the Lost Boys insist that no person attempt to recreate or reenact any activity or investigation performed in this show. Furthermore, these people are insane. You have been warned.
So g'day folks, Merry Christmas. We're only a couple of days out, Liam, aren't we, from Christmas?
Yep, only a stone's throw away now.
And as we promised earlier in the week, we were going to share some spooky story with you guys in Yuletide tradition prior to Christmas. But what we've decided to do, I guess, is share with you quite a tale of mystery and intrigue, which has attached to it quite a bit more gravity than just your ordinary run-of-the-mill spooky tale, Liam.
So yeah, definitely something that's been debated for many decades now, but goes quite a bit deeper than, I guess, your average Christmas ghost story.
And as you can see from the beautiful vista of buildings behind us here, downtown Wacol, just outside of Brisbane, or I think it might still be part of Brisbane, but right on the outskirts of Brisbane, you guys would have a fairly good idea where we are. Liam, would you like to tell the viewers where we are?
So we're at what is, I think, now called the Park, or in previous iterations was Woogaroo Lunatic Asylum, Wacol Mental Asylum, Brisbane Mental Hospital. So it's gone by many different names over the decades.
And how then does this mystery play into this, Liam? I guess it's a tale of Brisbane's lost graveyard. So there's a bit of a tale around the final resting place of well over 2,000, maybe 3,000 unfortunate souls who were residents in the buildings that you see behind us.
There is, so dating from the late 1800s right the way through to probably about 1950. But quite a number of thousand very unfortunate patients who passed away, lost their lives within the facilities here, who had originally been buried on the premises, but may or may not be now.
Now there were at least three different evolutions of graveyard or cemetery associated with this establishment.
There was. So as a facility continued to evolve and expand, the very original cemetery was down on the banks of, I think it's Woogaroo Creek, which is now part of the golf course, so quite a ways distant from here. A second evolution of the cemetery, because of flooding down in that original one, had the cemetery sort of right up in the middle of the facilities. And then a third cemetery that was pretty much the polar opposite side of the facility from the very original cemetery.
So we're about to take you guys down to the Goodna General Cemetery and show you the mental memorial, the mental hospital memorial that's been fairly recently erected in that space, and give you a little bit of an insight on what our thoughts are around what's actually going on down there. Mate, feeling decidedly sick, just standing here amongst all these headstones here at the Mental Asylum Memorial.
Yeah, it's a really pit of the stomach, just icky feeling, all the way down here in the very back corner of the cemetery.
Like, we'll give you a little bit of a pan around so you can get an idea of where we are, and for the local paranormal community, many groups have investigated here over the years, and with good reason, because standing here in broad daylight in the middle of the day, just a couple of days out from Christmas, I mean, we're really finding ourselves feeling unwell, unsettled. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, just really unnerving, just sickening feeling standing here.
Now, why are we here? I guess we did promise you guys a couple of days ago that we were going to bring you some spooky story around Christmas, and in keeping with that Yuletide tradition, Liam. But this story is way more significant than that, than just your average ghost story. There's quite a bit of gravity to this, and there's a little bit of mystery as well. Would you agree, Liam?
So quite a bit of mystery attached to this one, and I think it's something that's been debated for many years now.
So what we've actually got here, we've got a number of headstones that were placed here in the mid-70s, is that correct, Liam?
So I think they made their way to the cemetery here in the mid-70s. I think the current configuration of the headstones behind us is only been for the last 15 odd years, so dating around 2006. with this memorial behind us. But yeah, definitely something that's sort of only really sort of come into fruition in the last 40 to 50 years.
So what the official record tells us is between the years of a 4-year period of about 1945 to 50, that a number of the mental patients at the asylum were actually tasked with disinterring several hundred bodies and or the remains of several hundred other patients and transporting them down here to Goodna Cemetery. Now, having said that, where they actually have been interred still remains quite the mystery.
Quite the mystery. So definitely said to be somewhere within the grounds of the cemetery. That being said, it's rather large grounds, but I think it's pretty much the agreed upon thing that those couple of hundred bodies were definitely not interred down in this section of the cemetery. So all of these sort of little grave markers that are behind us are still sort of detached, I guess, from the remains that were associated with them that are buried somewhere else on the grounds here.
So they've actually just been concreted in place, and very unlikely that human remains are in the vicinity. Having said that, though, that doesn't negate a possibility of any paranormal activity on site here.
Yeah, I'd say so. So it could very well be attached, with these. Some of the remains that would have gone with these headstones, are likely not here at the cemetery at all.
So where are they? Now, that is the million-dollar question. So even the official plaque associated with the Brisbane Mental Hospital Memorial down here admits, quite stunningly, that they really don't have any official record of where these bodies have actually been interred.
That's right. So yeah, just that byline there, whose final resting place is unknown.
So look, in a nutshell, Liam and I have done quite a bit of research in this space, and so have others over the years, and we think that we've got a pretty good bead on where these several thousand, would you say, Liam?
So it's said to be several thousand in the third, I guess, incarnation of the cemetery that was attached to Woogaroo Lunatic Asylum, or the Brisbane Mental Hospital. That area that those couple of thousand were buried, from which a couple of hundred of these grave markers were then removed and brought down here.
So we're still missing the identification of the resting place of several thousand souls at least. Well, officially recognised anyway. But what we hope to do today, fans, is take you to the actual site, which we very strongly believe may hold the answer to some of these questions.
Yep, the origin of that original cemetery where all of these markers came from.
Now, what we're going to do is, just before we leave here and take you to that site, and Liam and I will just show you some of the horrific stuff that's going on in this space. Now, Goodna Cemetery has been subject to quite a number of attacks of vandalism over the years, and but it's like a measure of society how we treat our dead, and the respect with which we treat our dead. I just want to show you just a pile of stones that have just been unceremoniously dumped here, which is very, very sad. And I guess you wonder why we're getting all these feels, Liam, associated with being in this space, when all this irreverence and disrespect for the departed is going on.
Yeah, so quite the foreboding feeling, but as you can see, there's definitely, the numbers are still imprinted in these stones. Obviously they're not quite as pretty as the other ones, so who knows, maybe they were sort of dumped over here because they just didn't match the profile for being part of the memorial. But again, incredibly sad to see that it's sort of just been laid to waste over here, quite a distance away from the memorial itself.
So Liam and I are here, and we're just walking up Orford Drive.
Orford Drive.
At Wacol. So we're in a public area. We're not trespassing or anything. You can actually see the demarcation of the private boundary by way of bollard through the bush here. So what's special about this little corner bush parcel, Liam?
So this very nondescript little bush parcel, sort of little finger that juts out up to the main roundabout where Orford Drive starts, is actually pretty much the boundary of the third iteration of the Wacol mental hospital cemetery. So in amongst all of this bushland, at some stage there would have been a couple of thousand burial sites.
So a couple of thousand former residents of the asylum have been interred here, and this is their final resting place. And yet we don't have any formal acknowledgement or recognition of this.
So no formal acknowledgement at all. So to drive past here or walk past, there would have been no indication whatsoever that there are still very likely thousands of people buried just below the surface.
Wow, that's amazing in this day and age. But you know, Brisbane is quite used to treating its dead in this way, Liam.
So very used to it. Brisbane's very original cemetery on North Quay in Brisbane. Eventually, sort of after about 1843, was left to go to rack and ruin, and sort of eventually all of the surface indications that a cemetery was there was erased. But there's still roughly 250, 260 people buried under there. And poor old Paddington Cemetery or Milton Cemetery pretty much went the same way in the early years of the 1900s, where all visual traces were removed. And there's still, you know, likely anywhere upwards of 8,000 people buried under that area.
So Liam, isn't it very strange, very peculiar indeed, that we're back here at the site where these individuals are interred, yet we don't have the same icky, dense, sickly feelings that were very evident back when we were down at the Goodna General Cemetery, where the general memorial is.
Yeah, absolutely. So just really icky feelings that came on literally at the drop of a hat out of nowhere and passed just as quickly once we'd left the cemetery.
And I guess what would you reckon you put that down to? A little bit of the gravity, I guess, and the sanctity of the grave markers themselves?
I think so, definitely something attached to it. So whether it was just a bit of a spirit being slightly defensive given the amount of vandalism that's occurred in that section of the cemetery over time, or even just the indignity of headstones and bodies being sort of quite roughly moved back and forth between places. But yeah, very, very unusual.
Yeah, so you really do have the departed well and truly disrupted and uprooted, maybe not willingly in a spiritual sense, and taken somewhere else and treated in the manner that they have been over the years. Who wouldn't be upset?
Yeah, you'd have to imagine. Yeah, there'd be some sort of quite negative emotions and feelings over that.
And guys, just to really emphasize here that this is private property, and we're very, 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 very cognizant of that, very mindful of that. The Queensland Police Service actually own this piece of land behind us, so we've had to be very, very careful about not trespassing onto that part of the property. And it's very important that our viewers and our listeners don't do that.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, just be always mindful of who owns property and what's private and what's public.
So in a nutshell, Liam, do you reckon we've found this lost cemetery?
I absolutely think that we've found it. So this is the exact spot, I'd say, right behind us, where this cemetery would have existed up until about 1950.
Wow, and you know what the kicker is here? Is we've got the new Wacol Police Complex, which is just in the process of being completed as one of the boundaries.
It is. So
to this area.
It bounds pretty much either side, so just the other side of the wooden bollards behind us.
Right, so we've got major government infrastructure happening all around it, and we still don't have any formal recognition for the poor souls that are interred behind us. And I guess when you talk about the way in which a society treats its dead, it's a real hallmark of human dignity, isn't it?
It is. So there's definitely sort of no real reverence for what's been allowed to transpire behind us.
So Liam and I did promise you a couple of spooky tales, but in our research and looking into some of the really sad stories concerning the residents of the asylum over the years, we've actually come across some really disturbing accounts of how the residents were treated, Liam.
So some absolutely horrific horror stories of people's lives and deaths within the confines of the asylum, you know, back in its earlier stages.
People being buried alive.
Buried alive, so definitely one person in the official records where it was actually confirmed that they had been buried alive, you know, prior to them dying.
And that's right behind us here.
Yep, right behind us in this very cemetery.
Wow, and also some record about some really poor treatment of residents and patients in their dying hours, Liam.
So in their dying hours, where sort of most patients were housed in big open, I guess, sort of big open halls. So you'd have, you know, a number of bunk beds, just like a sort of the old style hospitals that you would see. But obviously with, you know, quite a number of manic patients running around at all hours of the day and night. Stories of people being even locked in toilets and bathrooms to be allowed to die in peace,
Wow.
you know, without other patients sort of jumping on them in their beds.
Yeah, some really disturbing accounts, and I guess facts stranger and more disturbing than fiction, Liam.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, at that stage, there's a very private facility here. Not many people were allowed to come through and visit or inspect the premises.
So I guess the question here, Liam, is where to from here? Next year, just in terms of do we chase this down a little bit more, make some more inquiries as to what can be done to formally recognise those that have passed away, and that whose final resting place is just behind us here.
So definitely, I think worth following up a little bit further. It'd be lovely to see cars go past. Lovely to see some kind of sign or recognition that you know, there are likely still, you know, multiple people interred here. But yeah, let's see what 2021 brings.
In the same sort of vein, Liam, you reckon, as they've done down at the Goodna General Cemetery with all the headstones down there?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, some kind of plaque or signage would be really nice to see, and I think, yeah, at least sort of pay a little bit of homage to the people who are still interred.
Well, we can only hope, and folks, we're going to do what we can from our end to push that and see that some justice and some dignity is actually restored to those unfortunate souls whose lives were challenging at best, and who are interred behind us.
Yep. So yeah, give a little bit of additional voice back to the voiceless, back to the forgotten.
And I guess, Liam, that's it for us this year.
It is. So just 2020 grinds to a halt.
Well,
it's
been really busy, and what an amazing ride it's been on the Lost Boys program so far this year.
So far, absolutely. So some incredible stories and yeah, quite a bit of field work.
Yeah, a lot of spirit messages coming through there as well, which we intend to continue to bring. Well, our entire team intend on bringing you guys well into 2021, and let me tell you, we have an absolute cracker investigation to kick off 2021.
Absolutely. So multifaceted story, quite incredible.
And talk about changing lanes. This particular tale and this investigation, I guess, transcends a lot of the supernormal or paranormal genres. So we've got a little bit of ghosty stuff in there, we've got a little bit of extraterrestrial stuff, and we've certainly got some cryptid action thrown in for good measure.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of supernatural, paranormal feels all mashed together.
So from Sheryl, Jade, Liam and myself, and I guess the entire Lost Boys team, have yourselves a very safe and Merry Christmas and a fantastic New Year. Stay strong, stay safe, moving into 2021.
Absolutely. Stay safe, and we'll see you next year.
See you guys.